In this video, I will be doing a head-to-head comparison of the LG C1 and the Samsung QN90A Neo QLED. First, let me start by saying that this comparison isn't meant to prove one TV is better than the other. Instead, it's to highlight each TV's strengths and weaknesses so that we can help you make a better decision on which TV to add to your home. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel Tech with KG. I want to start by saying that you should never trust anyone's camera completely. What they're showing you may not be a correct example of what's actually happening with the picture. Filming TVs that are displaying varying levels of brightness is not an easy task, so instead try to listen to what I am saying about each scene. I took notes while filming so you could get a better understanding of what I was seeing. With that said, I do feel pretty confident about some of the footage that you are about to see. I thought that I filmed it pretty close to what I was seeing, but I just wanted to state that up front. So right now, you're currently seeing an example of one of the videos I really wanted to bring to your attention. This was a really detailed video of animals, and if you look really closely, the QN90A is displaying some highlight detail that you really can't see on the OLED. It definitely seems like whenever there's sunlight involved or anything shining off of something, we are seeing a detail loss on the OLED. And if you're looking closely at the animals on display here, you can see that if they have sunlight on their head or on their body, you're seeing that it's getting muted a little bit. And I found that to be true with a lot of cases, not just this video. And for this, let me bring your attention to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, in this game footage, I wanted to show you how the sunlight hitting the environment just seems to be lacking detail on the OLED, but on the QN90A, it's doing a very awesome job of just displaying what you would expect to see in a situation like that. So I definitely think that if you're buying an OLED coming from a high brightness TV like a Samsung flagship, that may be something you want to be very mindful of, as you may be missing those details when you move to that TV. Next, I want to move into some more gaming, and I want to talk about how when we're looking at the differences between these two TVs, there was way more shadow detail in the C1, and I definitely felt that in a lot of these games. At times, it's clear there's no beating the OLED technology when it comes to displaying shadows or darker areas. Is there a black crush? Yes, at times there is, but the same can be said for the Neo QLED from time to time. And I think that if you are a fan of these dark games, these dark movies, there is no beating OLED. However, if you're a fan of bright games, movies shot in the daylight, or movies that have a lot of high impact bright scenes that stay on the screen, it's hard to match the Neo QLED. I guess that's what it comes down to. Because, in a darker environment, you could absolutely have the QN90A and it will look really good. However, it will never be an OLED. So if you want the best of the best with darkness, you're going to want to go with an OLED. But if you want the best of both worlds, the QN90A is probably the better choice. So I guess the question that I have for you is, how often are you actually watching this kind of content? And that's what you got to ask yourself is, what content do I watch on a regular basis, and what TV will really benefit from that? So let's move on to Netflix, where I think a lot of you guys probably watch a ton of Netflix. But before we talk about that, if you guys are enjoying this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing and help me get more eyes on the channel. Thank you so much. Alright, so let's talk about Netflix and how the movies look on Netflix, how the shows look on Netflix. Well, I pulled up one of my favorite shows, Outer Banks. I thought this show was spectacular when I saw it on the Q90T, but when I saw it on the C1, I was absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe exactly what I was missing in terms of the color, and it just looked so much better on the OLED. And this could very well be Dolby Vision's color taking effect here, It almost looked like Outer Banks was color graded perfectly for this TV. And when I had it on the QN90A, I just didn't get that feeling. Now, I'll say this about Netflix. I actually enjoy a lot of the stuff that I watch on Q90T, and I don't have a problem with the way Netflix looks. But when I had the QN90A next to the C1, Netflix looked better on the C1. And that's just something that was a real life example, and I can't say it any other way. I preferred the C1. Next, I want to bring you to this Battlefield 5 tank scene, and I really did think this scene was going to be something that the QN90A would absolutely destroy the OLED on. But to my surprise, the OLED and the QN90A, they did a really good job with it. There's a lot of flashing scenes, there's a lot of explosions. LG C1 does a really good job of not suppressing these images. So I think when you have flashes like that, when you have sudden bursts, you won't get the ABL kicking in as much as prior OLEDs did in the past. This is something that I really like to see. That means that the aggressive algorithm that the ABL had in the past is definitely less aggressive than it was. So that's nice. And I do like seeing that. I also noticed that in Outriders when there was lightning strikes, and there's a lot of lightning strikes in that game. Um, and that really was just like an eye opener of how great it looked on the C1. Next, I have a really weird example here. Let's check out this clip with desserts. And you'll notice the OLED in the top left, there's a white spot. Nothing is actually wrong, and the video is displaying what it actually looks like. On my monitor, I checked, the white spot is there as well. However, if you look on the QN90A, there is no white spot. So this is just coming to show you an example of how aggressive that local dimming algorithm is that is in place. The entire image around the strawberry is pitch black. I just thought this was a very interesting thing, and so I wanted to point that out. Next up, I want to take a look at Watch Dogs Legion, and I can't help but feel that I'm missing some details here with the QN90A. Look, side by side, the C1 just kind of outshined the QN90A in these dark scenes. In this night example with some of the lights, I thought the QN90A didn't do as good as the C1, with the exception of some scenes like this one. Notice the difference in the lights and also the neon lights with this scene. So you can see that the C1 really doesn't have much going on with that, and the QN90A is actually looking like that stuff is lit up. So that's something that I wanted to point out as well. Next, I want to briefly touch on screen uniformity and black levels for the QN90A and the C1. So black levels on the C1 obviously were perfect, and on the QN90A I thought they held up pretty good as well, and often looked very similar to the C1, and they rarely displayed blooming unless you were looking at it from the side on those examples. There was some blooming, but to be honest with you, this TV did the best job I've ever seen out of an LCD TV when it comes to black levels. On to comparing some more footage here. I got a still image of an alligator side by side here, and I really think that on the QN90A, this image just looks so much better. There is sunlight shining off of the water clearly in the QN90A, but on the C1, you wouldn't see that sunlight shining. For whatever reason, it is suppressed. And I go back to this, it seems like highlights are muted and suppressed on the C1. And it is very, very disappointing to see for sure if you are a fan of those scenes that you're definitely going to be gypped of some of those things. And in this example, it was clear. It's tough because there are times where the QN90A will look so much better than the C1. And then there's also examples where the C1 will just look so much better than the QN90A for a different reason. And it comes down to shadow detail and highlight detail. Once again, let's take a look at another scene where we're seeing a snake side by side. I would love to know in the comments, what image do you prefer? Do you like the left or the right? See, to me, I think that the right image looks more like a snake that I would see in real life. Don't want to see a snake in real life, But if I saw a snake in real life, it probably looked like the one on the right. When it comes to scenes where the OLED is the clear winner, it's definitely scenes like this where you have a image on a dark background and you have a lot of details in a black object. Like this horse, for example. It is really shining to a different degree on the C1, and you could see the details in the fur. And I would argue that on the QN90A, that's probably not what the horse looks like. And I do see some details being crushed with the aggressive local dimming. And this was used at a high local dimming setting. So we are definitely seeing some details get crushed down. I also wanted to note that the difference in color with the reds, you could definitely see a difference. So we have scenes that are looking better on OLED. We have scenes that are looking better on the QLED. Now, what about scenes that look pretty much identical? There's a lot of that as well. And to be honest with you, that shows the strength of the QN90A. And it's really showing that it is close to punching with the OLED. It's not there yet, but it's a really good example of if you want high brightness, you could still get some really good darkroom performance as well. Really quickly, let's touch on the subject of sports. Now, with sports, we're going to talk about motion. And with motion, I think that there is a really good consideration. Both of these TVs are great with motion, but the LG C1 just does motion so much better. The subject of picture quality, what picture is going to look better for you, you also have to factor in DSE. If DSE is going to be something that bothers you with sports, then you're definitely going to want to lean towards an OLED. Personally, if I'm buying a TV for sports, I'm probably buying an OLED. Let's talk about SDR gaming for a second, and the Nintendo Switch was a perfect candidate for this. I definitely felt that the SDR gaming looked better on the QN90A overall. So if you're somebody that plays a lot of Nintendo Switch, you might want to keep that in mind. That said, I think a lot of people would probably be okay with the image on the C1. Just side by side, I noticed a huge difference. That's really kind of it. On the C1, I didn't see as much brightness, and I felt like some highlights were, again, dimmed down. And the QN90A was very bright and vibrant, and I just liked it overall for SDR. It almost gave like an HDR look to SDR gaming. So I do like that. And contrast enhancer was off for this example. You could turn them on both of these TVs, but I did not for this example. But that would maybe help with SDR. So what do you guys think? Which TV would you get? Tell me in the comments below. I think both TVs are great. They excel in different things, and you just have to dig deep and see what you prefer in a picture. And what environment are you in? You have to factor all of those in. For me, it's tough. I keep going back and forth on what I prefer to have, and I really don't know what my next choice of TV will be. Will it be a Samsung QLED or any other LCD? Or will it be an OLED from LG or Sony? I really don't know. And I guess that's something that I have to figure out myself as well. There's times where I know I will miss those highlight details from the flagship LCDs. And there's times where I'm like, yes, well, those shadow details and the black levels are kind of unbeatable for the OLED. I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, hey, KG, what about burning? And see, burning is one of those things where it's very, very rare. Does it occur? Yeah, it can occur, but it does take time. And you really have to mistreat your TV or have abnormal usage of it for it to happen. Yeah, I don't think people should fear burn-in. And if you do fear burn-in, maybe the OLED isn't something that you'll ever be comfortable with because you'll always have that fear in the back of your mind. So, with that said, what do you guys think? What TV are you going to get? Tell me in the comments below. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this on social media if you can. If you're looking for more content on either of these TVs, I'll have them at the end of this video. Thank you for watching and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.